All right, you guys, thanks for coming on to class today. We're right in the midst of our semester, and we're really starting to get into the meat of the material, so I appreciate that you're keeping up with it. Today, we're going to talk about the Silica series. So last week, we talked about the carbon series, and this week we're talking about the Silica series, and I'm splitting it into two classes. So today we're talking about Natrum, Magnesium, Aluminum, and Silica. And then we're going to do a case-taking class, the next one. And then after that, we're going to talk about phosphorus, sulfur, and chlorine. So just kind of connecting to those elements, they're elements of the earth. And considering that a bunch of people we're all on our periods right now, I want the energy of this class to really be about really keeping it real and grounding and clearing away all the excess junk. As women, we get to clear away once a month. And when we have our periods, we kind of can shut down and go through that process of clearing and cleansing. And we'll talk about that with the remedies a little bit today. So I'm just going to show you my notes. All right. So before we kind of get into it, I wanted to talk just about, we're starting to get into this idea of combining the elements. And I made this chart here on the idea of combining the salts, the minerals. And when we're going to do the combining, it's going to very much be around this set of elements. We can do it with other elements, but you know, it's mostly around these ones. If you're new to homeopathy, don't feel like you have to totally get this. This is really awesome if you already know a lot about homeopathy, and then you can kind of like expand into this, and it's really cool and fun. So this is just every time, just let it kind of wash over you, and it will get clearer and clearer with time. So stage one, we have the elements natrum and kali, which are sodium and potassium. Natrum is the same as sodium, which is part of salt, and kali is the same as potassium. Okay, those are stage one. Stage one has the energy, which we've talked about, of like really insecure, like not sure. It's just like your first step into trying something out. And so these elements, natrum, we'll talk about really deeply in class today, but they have this feeling of like deep shyness, insecurity. They're like wallflower types. And then stage two, we have magnesium and calcarea, which is calcium. And they have a very similar energy where it's like, I'm stepping out, but I'm like in the door, but I'm really anxious. It's this idea of like, okay, I'll walk into the classroom, but I'm going to hide behind mom's leg. You know, it's just this really like unsure, insecure energy in magnesium and calcarea. Okay, so you have natrum, kali, magnesium, and calcarea. And these themes we'll talk about in more detail as we go along. But when we combine elements, we can take these top four and we can combine one of them with any of these elements on the bottom. So on the bottom half are elements that are stages 10 through 17. So it's this combination of the elements from the left side of the chart with the right side of the chart. Okay, and so stage 10 is very much about like structure. We talked about this last week with carbon, structure, tissue, stability, father figure, and that's carbon silica. Stage 15 is the kind of phosphorusy, arsenicamy, more hypochondriacal, extroverted energies. Stage 16 is the sulfury, lazy, detox energies. And stage 17 is the kind of really negative energies of chlorine, fluorine, bromine, all minerals that really affect the thyroid. So the possibility is that you can make natrum phos, natrum arsenicum, natrum fluor. Natrum can go with any, you can have natrum carb, natrum sil, natrum oxygenium, natrum sulf. Some of these remedies are really well known and some of them are not so well known. And the beauty of looking at it conceptually like this is that you can use the not so well known elements and remedies. We can give a remedy like magnesium silicata, even though it's not well known. So this is an example of possible combinations. So with natrum, you have all of these possibilities. Kali, you have all these possibilities. Magnesium, you have all these possibilities. And calcarea, you have all of these. You know, previously in homeopathy, people would try to memorize, you know, or just like hopefully, you know, be able to look up in books. And there's more orderliness. There is a more science to it if you understand it from the way that I'm teaching it from this conceptual point of view. Does that make sense to everybody? So, you know, the way that Scholten has his book laid out is he has specific themes for each element, which he lays out in the periodic table of elements. And then when those themes come up in a person, he combines them. So we'll talk about that in some cases today. Okay. The only two remedies that we should really be diving into the themes for today are natrum and magnesium, which we will get into. You know, if you are really into the dowsing or the pendulum or, you know, muscle testing, you can also muscle test remedies this way. We've got this left brain and right brain approach, right? So our left brain wants to analyze and figure it out, and we can do that, and we can go into that and figure it out first. Or we can go with the right brain. We can be really intuitive and pendulum test and figure out a remedy that way, and then look and see, use our analysis and look up the remedies and see how they fit. And hopefully they merge, they meet. So we're looking for a meeting of the left and the right brain. Sometimes I think it's possible to get an intuitive hit. This happens to me all the time. Like I'll try to kind of look at a photo or look at a video and get my feelings on somebody and write it down. And then I'll take the case and I'll be like, nah, that's not the top thing that's coming up right now. So, you know, that's my analytical part of me keeping my intuitive part in check. So we're always keeping, as women, we actually have a larger corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is the part of the brain that links the left and the right brain together. That's why we make like lots of connections. We're gifted with a really big corpus callosum. So we want to meet both left and right types of thinking. Most schooling is all about the analytical brain. We never get any schooling unless you're an art student or you go to a Waldorf school on the right-sided thinking, right? So I am really just emphasizing it here because of how important it is to get good remedies. Any questions on remedy combos? Why do some have asterisks? I just put asterisks on some because they're the more well-known ones. Like Nat Carb is pretty well known. It has all of these keynotes, like likes classical music, milk allergy, has certain things. Nat Phos has, you know, certain keynotes, good for worms. Whereas Natrum nitrosum, I've never given before. I don't know what it's for. I've never learned it in school. Nat Sulf is a very famous remedy. It's for, so sulfur is this deep love of a partner, this deep romance, and then natrum is for the loss of that partner too. So, so it's a really great remedy if someone loses their partner and is really depressed. It's actually a remedy for suicidal feelings if you lose somebody close to you. But it's also just a good constitutional remedy for various things, you know, in the body, gut things. Natmir, we're just going to go in great detail today because it's such a huge remedy, so I starred that. Mag carb will go into detail, you know. So that's why I starred some. And like, we have 8 more classes. So we'll be talking about these in more detail as we go along. But I'm not going to be talking about Kali ferrocyanatum, for example, or Kali oxidatum, because some of these remedies are just being developed since Scholten has developed this system. You know, what's really cool, there's a remedy called Natrum oxalicetum, and there's no materia medica on it except that it's really good for colds. And I have taken it when I've had a cold come on. I remember when I was first working as a homeopath, and it has this very short materia medica, good for colds. And I took it, and I like fell asleep on my desk. Just like passed out. And I woke up, and I was like, wow, that remedy's powerful. So, and I do think it helped me. You know, I haven't prescribed it a ton though. Okay. All right. So any other questions on combining these? You know, when we are going to combine them, we're going to combine them often with remedies from the Silica series. So phosphorus, sulfur, chlorum, silica, oxygen, those often are the elements that we're combining like a metal with or something. So if for example, you felt like someone needed aurum, the remedy from gold, you could give just aurum metallicum, metallic gold, or you could give aurum sulfuricum or aurum arsenicum or aurum muriaticum. And they all have slightly different spins on the energy of gold. Okay. All right, so we can be talking about that a little bit more. That chart will come up more in class. Yeah, just so Brooke wrote, so I'm clear, it's really as simple as someone having symptoms that fit both, so you combine it. Yes, correct. So in life, people tend to have polarities. They swing from 2 poles, right? So usually, like if the understanding where somebody's polarity is, and you can think about that for yourselves too, or your kids, is really important to seeing the whole cycle, the whole picture of the person. So, so somebody might, like, you know, on one hand, if they need aurum, act like a big responsible adult, and then like when they're alone at home, cry like a baby, you know, maybe. So it's maybe like acting like way over mature and then acting like totally immature. So there's polarities there. Or there's a polarity in sensations like numbness versus oversensitive to pain. There could be a polarity where I'm extremely nervous about going out into relationship, which is a natrum, but there's a part of me that just really likes to perform and get up on stage in front of people, you know. And so it's like, it's finding sometimes the contradictions of where people are at, and then finding a remedy to fit those contradictions, to fit that polarity. And in homeopathy, it's really about truly using your heart and your soul to understand the essence of the person that's sitting in front of you, you know. And so if your heart is just like really connecting in, and you're just like, wow, this person just feels so in outer space, you know, and they feel, I had somebody once prescribe me a remedy I had never, like, I don't think even exist. They had just learned homeopathy, and they were like pendulum testing, and they were like, I think you need ferrum helium. And I'm like, there's no such remedy as ferrum helium. Come on, helium doesn't combine with anything. Anyways, they put ferrum and helium into a remedy bottle for me. Like, they combined the two remedies and they gave it to me, and it helped me so much. So maybe it was just the fact that they saw these two elements in me and combined them, and it really, like, you know, it was at the time where I was working my butt off and like pushing myself really hard and seeing like 2 new autism cases a day. And so they put the ferrum in for the hard working, and they put the helium in for like the spaced out energy that I had. And it totally helped me. So, you know, where science merges with, like, you know, our intentions, I don't know. You know, sometimes, you know, as a newbie to all of this, you can have incredible success doing something that hasn't been done before. So homeopaths who put $30,000 into an education and, like, you know, and say this is how it's done, they're not gonna like, you know, people using a pendulum to find a remedy for themselves. But all I have to say is that I've learned working with special needs families that if you can't empower people to help figure stuff out for themselves, they're not going to get on their path quickly, you know, and getting people in touch with their intuition is one of the best ways to empowering them. So, is that clear, Brooke? So yes, you can combine them. I mean, would I combine like 5 remedies into one? I've never done that before. Maybe there's a limit to my own capacity for being creative with all of this. And Smitha asked, will we get all the keynotes for these? I can put together the keynotes, like quick keynotes. At the same time, that's what having like a good Materia Medica book is for, because it's hard for me to like look at NAPCARB and be like, oh, what 3 keynotes should I include or not include? Because sometimes it's better that you just have the book with the material in front of you. Okay. You know, this is a really good book, by the way. This was my homeopathy teacher, Paul Herskew. He's in Massachusetts. And this book has, I think, 8 or 9 constitutional remedies of kids in it, and they're written in really great detail. And it really, like, it has these like bulleted outlines, like the Lycopodium child. And I like it. I feel like if all you did is read this and understood this really deeply, and I will do my best to teach the Polycrest well-known remedies really well, but it is a really good book. The Homeopathic Treatment of Children by Paul Herskew. It's a good 350 pages on 8 remedies. So it's like, or 9 remedies. So it's very detailed for those specific remedies. They are 2 naturopaths that went to Iowa after school, and they took cases from all these like farm kids and generally healthy kids, and they all kind of fit within needing these remedies. So it's kind of constitutional remedies, I would say, for average kids, which not as many kids are fitting into that category nowadays. Yeah. Okay, good, Brooke. Yeah, you're a reader, Brooke. Okay. It is good because you can just kind of flip to the outlines for each remedy too. At the same time, I know people have read this book and they think their kid needs every remedy in it because of the way that they write about each remedy. And that makes it challenging. I think sometimes if you delve so deeply into reading, like there's a book, Homeopathic Psychology by Philip Bailey, and you can read it and you can feel like, I need like all of these remedies, or I need like 15 of them. And it's challenging because your brain just starts to overanalyze. So, okay. So the Silica series is really all about relationships. It's all about, we talked about with the hydrogen series, we're like trying to incarnate onto this plane. And then with the carbon series, we're coming into our bodies and our materiality, our material reality, and developing an ego and a sense of identity. And then with Silica series, we're connecting to the people around us. We're forming who we are through relationship. And this is very much about like who we are in our families. I would say if there are kind of core constitutional types, they're often around people being kind of core Natrum, core Silica, core phosphorus, core sulfur in body type. Like if you were to do lots of clearing of remedies at your core, you can look at various people and be like, that seems like a phosphorus-y person, or that seems like a Silica person, or a Natrum kind of person. And a lot of that comes around where were you? What energy were you in your family growing up? And it's not that your family made you that way. Maybe you're just that way, and this is where the family treated you because you're a certain constitution too. So these are key remedies. Universal remedies. I have to say aluminum isn't, though, because for what we know, we don't know that aluminum has an actual biological function in the body. We only see it as a toxic metal. That being said, I did just read something recently from a meditative proving on aluminum, saying how aluminum helps us in our bodies integrate our like spiritual bodies. Like it helps us release our astral bodies when we sleep at night and helps us like bring them back in. Totally interesting. But anyways, as far as for you guys, aluminum, I'll teach it to you from the classical point of view. All right. So, Silica, we will talk about in great detail today. So archetypal roles in the family, and you guys probably kind of have a sense of what roles you have or your kids have. I have definitely treated families where we're working on this problem kid and like really they start to get better, and then another kid in the family becomes the problem kid, or like the family dynamics start to shift, and parents don't realize that they're kind of like enforcing the roles through that they've like created an identity for that child, and then they keep playing it out through how they view the child. So it often helps if like you're like hyper focusing on one kid in the family as like the problem kid, to like pull back and maybe say, well, maybe this is not the right, maybe I should give him the chance to be the like perfect kid, and let the perfect kid have the chance to be the problem child, because in some ways it's like pressure. Sometimes I think the problem child wants to get an A, but they don't because they're the problem child, And sometimes the one that's always getting the A needs to learn that getting a C is not a big deal, So I just Googled archetypal roles for families just because I was like, oh, let's just, what are these standard archetypal roles? And this is the link down here for some blog that I found on this, but I can see this. So we have the problem child, and the problem child could be, like a troublemaker. So I kind of read the description of the problem child according to this as like the troublemaker, like the kid who's just, violent or wants to take drugs or something like that, an addict, and so I put some possible remedies, it's like lachesis, these like meteorinum, tuberculinum, remedies that are like destructive in nature, essentially. And these kids are kind of, it feels like they're out to destroy the family. But really what these kids are, and what I just will always emphasize, is that our kids are projections of our own stuff too. So yeah, if you were self-destructive in your 20s, there's a good chance that that's going to come out in your kids too at some point. Sad to say. The truth teller. I had a hard time kind of figuring out like what that really meant. The truth teller, the scapegoat, the black sheep. I feel like, you know, because this is my week that I have my period, and like this was my week of being the truth teller to Ryan. Like I think when we're all getting our periods, we're the truth tellers. So I would say PMSy women are under truth teller. And according to homeopathy, it would be like bromium, you know, or chlorum or floric acid, these like stage 17 remedies. Like they're really in this like kind of negative place, but they're the ones who might be like saying all the things that are wrong, you know, and calling people out, but then people are blaming them, and there's a lot of like blame going back and forth. The good child, you know, the perfectionist, the narcissist. Lots of pandas kids are perfectionists, the good child. I mean, it's so standard. I would say at least 30-50% of pandas cases, you've got this kid who's type A, and they're burning the candle at both ends and they crash, you know? So it's not necessarily good to be the good child in this culture nowadays because of what we expect out of kids. I think for me growing up, I was the good kid who got A's, but nobody really cared either. I think I was also maybe the invisible child where I got the A's, but nobody cared. So, then you have like the low maintenance child, the invisible child. And that was, you know, that's some of the remedies I'm going to be talking about today. These kind of quiet, low key, soft, mild mannered people. You know, they're here to just like blend into the background a little bit because being in the forefront is too crazy. You know, they want to play defense on the soccer team. They don't want to be forwards. And so these are those kids, you know, and they may still do well in school, but for the most part, you know, they're easy. They want to be easy. Or they're easy because we ignore them, you know. And if we didn't ignore them, they'd have more to say. Then we have like the slacker. Slacker could be a lot. I put sulfur and selenium, sulfury types of remedies. And then the helpers. So you guys can think about what you guys were as kids and what your kids are, and how you could maybe, by giving remedies, allow your kids more leeway to playing out different archetypes. I mean, kids are trying on roles, you know, all the time, and they're practicing their life out. So, okay. I am, by the way, going to do 2 meditations today. So, if you guys have the Dropbox folder that I sent out to you guys, I put in a folder with meditations on it because somebody was trying to meditate and was asking me for some meditation. So I put them in there, and some of them are ones that I've recorded. And then I realized, like, for me to teach some of these elements, to do them by going into meditation would be a really nice thing, because, you know, the elements, they're here in our bodies, they're here to serve us. And I think if you can kind of close your eyes and really get the essence of them, it'll lock in more than if you're just listening to me from your head. So we're going to do that. We're going to do a guided meditation on salt and quartz. All right. So the themes of Natrum. Okay, so Natrum, Schulten writes, impulsive relations, alone, lonely, vulnerable, and grieve. Okay, so it's that idea of kind of stepping into a relationship but unsure if it's going to be met by somebody. It's like putting one step forward but being insecure about it. And so there's this kind of sensitivity, this fear my nerves are sensitized to, am I going to be met? Is someone going to give me the love that I want? You know, and so often with Natrum, there's a pulling back, you know, because there's this fear. Natrum remedies in general are sensitive people. They're emotionally sensitive because they're emotionally sensitive to being hurt, being shut down, being alone. If people use the word alone or lonely, it doesn't always mean they need a Natrum remedy. And I think that's important because I think we can kind of fixate on the words that he associates. I've definitely seen people who are alone and lonely need many other remedies. But Natrum is this real sense that like I'm alone in all of this, you know. And so then Natmur, so Natmur is the remedy from salt. Natmur, you want to reach out, but you get shut down, and so you close off. And so that's the remedy from Natmur. You're closed off to relationship. Some part of you energetically is shut down to relationship. And it could be your main constitution, or it could be kind of a layer in you. There's often like a great fear of being rejected by love, rejected by my mother. There could have been some sort of a rejection. There's a fear of being hurt, so there's a shutdown to the emotions in general. In general, these people have an introversion to them because instead of like going out into the world, they kind of come into themselves. So when they're in themselves or they're more in their heads, they like to read a lot or they'll be romantic. You know, I've seen a lot of Natmur people be really into kind of English literature, you know, and the romantic guy galloping, you know, who's going to come and like romance you, and, you know, and it's sweet and genteel, and, you know, it's not hardcore, you know, it's the soft, gentle side of romance, of, what's her name? Jane Austen stuff. Paranormal romance. What is that? Someone asked, what about paranormal romance? I have no idea what that is. Just explain, and then I'll go into that. Vampire love. Vampire love, that's so interesting. I think the whole thing with vampires, I honestly think it has to do also with disease. If you think about it, it's like somebody poking into your bloodstream and injecting something. The zombies, the vampires, I think they're all, personally, I feel like they're all analogies for like the destruction of our humanity because we're like getting injected with all of these diseases. The zombie, so it's funny you like zombie books because you needed the remedy stramonium. And stramonium is the remedy, the plant that they use to make zombies. So this is a digression. But in the West Indies, there is a tree called the stramonium flower. It's a beautiful night-blooming flower. And you can give it to people. You can give it to people and they will partially die, and then you can bury them, and then you can make like literally a human zombie. So the feeling of stramonium is feeling like I'm half dead, half alive. Paul Herskew, who wrote this book, has a whole other book written just on stramonium. And stramonium is a huge remedy for brain inflammation, for feeling that I'm going to die. And it's an interesting corollary, Sasha, because there is some sort of a relationship with Natmur. There is a great fear. And Natmur has a lot of fears. It doesn't go out into the world because it's deeply fearful. And it can be like you be a Natmur and then you can kind of go into a much worse place, right? You could go into, you know, a more destructive place after Natmur. You could be a healthy Natmur and be compensated, and your family is like aloof and cold, but they give you cello lessons, and maybe you get, you know, attention because you're good at the cello, and so you work at cello your whole life and you play in an orchestra your whole life and you're well compensated and you're not sick. Or you could need Natmur And then, like, you know, your family, you get disowned from your family, you start drugs, and you just go down, like, then you need anacardium and then lachesis. But at some point you needed Natmir, right? So it's like a gateway remedy. And that's why I give it so often at some point in cases, right? Because so many people have this part of them that's closed off, you know, and it's cultural. So there's many cultures. If you think about, like, I don't know, Northern European and Northern Asian cultures tends to be like kind of Nordic, where people are more in their head. It's like, it's just a cultural thing that you know, you let the baby cry it out. You don't pick them up and cuddle them. You know, you drop them off at daycare and you don't connect, you know, the love isn't there. And like the hurt is always there. It's just, you know, there's this feeling like I'm not being loved. So deep down inside, there's a sadness, there's a victim state, there's a negativity, there's this, like, there's a part of them that's whining for love, pining for love. You know, people who need Natmir will have an emotional trauma that they will not let go of. Lots of remedies will have that, but it could be a stage. Natmir could be a stage after taking Staphysagria. And Staphysagria is for, you know, suppressed sexual violence. Sighing a lot is a keynote for other remedies, not necessarily Natmir. Natmir is like, if you think of Natmir, they just think of kind of like your prototypical kind of, has a nerd. Glasses, skinny, you know, like not like the wallflower kind of energy. Could be fat, you know, it doesn't, but it is known in kids for being kind of emaciated. It's like they're not necessarily thriving, you know. And Natmir is just an incredible remedy for acutes too. It's like at some point, Natmir is great for colds, for headaches. It's great if someone dies and someone's depressed, an animal dies and you're depressed. There's a difference between Ignatia. Ignatia depression after someone dies is hysterical. And sometimes people who are hysterical, they feed off of their own crying, and they're in this cycle of, like, you know, it's like the crying and the victim, and their, like, nervous system is looping this crying. Whereas Natmir is known for, like, either not being able to cry and being emotionally cut off and not able to cry, or, like, if they're crying, they don't want someone to give them a hug. They're trying to hide their feelings, you know. It's they're protecting themselves. It's the remedy of the ocean, of salt, of water. There's this kind of protective energy of over myself. I'm shelling myself away. A Natmir kid. Okay, so there are so many Natmir kids out there, and it's such a great remedy. They could be, you know, so there's a prototype for what a Natmir kid looks like, but it could be just a kind of a part of them. Like, a lot of people who need Natmir learn to compensate. So their reality is that they're deeply sad and insecure, but they learn to kind of act in life. So so a good remedy to go along with Natmir could be Thuya, you know. So it's like, as a kid, I was deeply nerdy, sad, insecure, nobody liked me, I had no friends energy. And then they learn to kind of play the part. They put something on. They put an extra layer on so that they can engage in society. And it's not them. They're just playing a role. And that's like somebody needing a remedy like Thuya or something, where they're like, you know, they could at some level maybe learn to become a certain way, and then later, and you peel that layer away, and then they need Natmir. Natmir people are just naturally sensitive. Sometimes you have kids, and it's not like mom forsakes them. They're just naturally sensitive. They're naturally prone to being hurt and resentful and, like, shutting down. It's just the natural constitution, you know, and so you can't blame it on mom. So I had this one nap mirror case, and it was a mom who had a set of twins, and she took them to one of those baby swim classes. And in those baby swim classes now, they make you kind of drop the baby in the water and let it kind of flounder for itself. Anyway, she did that. She did that with her kid, and afterwards he stopped talking and stopped looking at her, and he got like an actual like PDD NOS diagnosis after this, even though everything was kind of generally okay. But the twin brother was fine. Like, this didn't happen, and the mom didn't understand what was going on. And so basically this one child, his constitution was like, he felt like his mother like dropped him into the water or whatever it was scary. You know, he ended up like basically going into a nap mirror state from a swim class. And we gave him nap mirror and he just bounced right back. So so it's totally like there's some kids who are just tend towards this. They just tend towards this. That inability for affection, that inability for like the capacity to say hi and goodbye and turning the eyes away is really big with nap mirror. And nap mirror in general, they're well behaved. They want to please. But sometimes they can be like irritable or passive aggressive or claiming or blaming or whining because they're not really getting, they just feel bad about themselves. But, you know, for the most part, if they don't feel heard, they'll just keep it to themselves and they'll journal or they'll write a romance novel or something like that. They do not want to make mistakes. They're generally, you know, well dressed and, you know, will be looking nice. They're not going to be messy. They don't want to stand out. They could have all types of fears, all sorts of standard fears, fears of the dark. So many kids just at daycare become nap mirror-y, you know. You know, my child is really like empathic, and I'll pick her up from her preschool and she'll just be sobbing. And I'm like, Eva, why are you sad? Like, you had a good day. Like, everything is going good. And she's just like, somebody missed their mommy when he got dropped off. And she'll just tell me, like, the 3 kids that missed their mommy when they got dropped off. And I'm like, are you crying because you're sad or because they're sad? And she's like, she can't really explain, but I know she's crying because they're sad, you know? And it's sad. You know, I feel like our culture right now, you know, we really rushed right into like women in the workforce and stuff. And to some degree, I think we've missed out on why there was something good about moms at home with kids, you know, and our kids, I mean, you know, I started Eva in a preschool at 18 months and she was hardly ready for it. And a lot of people are putting their kids, you know, have to put their kids in preschool or in daycare at like 2 weeks or 6 weeks. So yeah, it's rough. It is really rough, you know. I don't know if there's an answer for it. At the same time, like kids are developing their connectivity, you know, in their bodies and so much. Yeah, in our culture, other cultures, other countries will pay moms to stay at home with their kids. That's interesting, but we don't in this culture. We don't value it. Okay. You'd think because they're nerdy that they do really well in school, and not necessarily. You know, there's definitely like a group of kind of Asperger's-y type kids who eat lots of carbs and don't look at people, and they're just kind of like, I don't know, just like antisocial and like don't get much accomplished in life. And really they just need nap mirror at some point. Maybe they need like another remedy on top of it. But you could have kids who don't do well in school too need nap mirror. It's not like you're like super academic and then you need nap mirror. The nap mirror can have major issues with concentration. Their immune system can take on lots of viruses. They have a hard time doing computations. They have a hard time just putting in the work. They might not have strong bodies where they can like work hard either physically. They could have issues with food. So they're like picky with food because food for them represents the mother. And there's this part of them that's playing this like give and take with the food and with the mother. So delayed development, issues with dentition, kind of like old looking, I don't know, drawn. The face may look a little drawn or dried out. They may not look like flush and plump and pink and hot. You know, they might look a little kind of colder and dry. Okay. Could need glasses. So again, it's just one of the commonest remedies, huge and special needs. So most special needs cases are challenging and need lots of layers, but every once in a while, you'll get this special needs case where all they needed was NAPMIR, and it's just awesome, you know, because physically things are fine. So I think of like one case that I treated was a boy who mom was a NAPMIR Ignatia, really Ignatia. She came into my office, it was when I was in New York, sobbing, you know, because her kid was just totally got diagnosed with everything, you know, totally regressed. He was doing well, regressed. And then she just tells me the story. It all happened when I went back to work. And I gave her Ignatia, I gave her NAPMIR, he had some gut stuff. We did some gut clearing, and eventually his constitutional remedy was NAPMIR, and he just lost his diagnosis really fast. Like mom going back home and being home with him, which is what he needed, but it wasn't what he needed as much as it was what she needed. In the end, like it ended up being, she was like really happy. She actually didn't want to go back to work. So it's also like kind of trusting our instincts. I think there's some kids who do fine and moms who do fine with, you know, going to work, and the moms are really secure and feel that the kids are secure. But if there's something that needs to be healed emotionally between mother and child, or you've got this like deep soulful connection, you know, and mom goes back to work, it's so traumatic for the kid. And it can be really important for mom to come back home. So she did, and yeah, he's fine. He's doing great. He's like a top kid in mainstream class now, and did fine. Still was NAPMIR was his remedy as a constitutional remedy for years. So they were a very NAPMIR-y family. They were like Northern European. You know, mom and dad didn't talk much. So it was that energy just kind of came through. I put aloof cultures. Mapped tongue, is that same as geographic tongue? Yeah, or like kind of spotty tongue. No, Brooke, you say like lots of remedies show up with mapped tongue, you know, but yes, it's maybe NAPMIR is the one. What causes mapped tongue is, my feeling is allergies or food allergens and just sensitivity. So maybe NAPMIR would help with a mapped tongue because it would be helping with food allergies. Okay. And so many moms, so many special needs moms need NAPMIR. In general, these moms tend to be more serious and not as forthcoming. Like I have moms who write, so one side of it is I had a mom write me 77 pages of an intake form recently. And this was not a NAPMIR mom. This was like a hyoscyamus / phosphorus mom. Like it's like when the information flowed, it just flowed. And she like didn't care that I wasn't going to read all of it. Like I just couldn't read that much information. And then there's some other women or people in general, just in general, where like to get information from them, you have to ask questions. You know, you have to kind of pull it from them. And that's a more of a NAPMIR type of person.
You can't, it's angelic, the screen.
A really big thing with NAPMIR is that it's the women
No.
themselves. Sorry, someone has their, somebody has their, if you guys can all check to make sure that you don't have your speaker on. If you don't have like a good connection with your own mother, then that could be a problem, you know, and that you need Natmir. So even though your mother is an alcoholic and said something awful and she's like the worst person in the world, there's still a part of us that energetically wants to connect to our moms, you know. And so Harvard did this long-term study of like hundreds of people, and it was on human health and happiness, like what makes somebody healthy and happy. And they tested all of these variables over this long-term study. And one of the top things that determines health and happiness is a good relationship with your parents, you know. And I think a lot of people, like, it's hard, it's impossible, you know. For some people it's just so impossible, but on some energetic level, working on resolving that, and you can do that with these remedies on healing the relationships we have with our parents, with our moms. Natmir is an energy for letting go, you know. So like if we need Natmir, it's like we pull back and we hold on to these resentments, and then we take Natmir and it helps us let go of what it was that was keeping us at a distance, you know. So we forgive and we forget. So it's just a wonderful remedy for that. Seeing so many Natmir moms who are immigrants. A lot of people, when they're coming to you as a practitioner, what they want is mothering. You know, it's like, what is healing? Is it some form of nurturing? And so you have, sometimes you have people who are just like really develop a codependent relationship with you. And maybe that's helpful for a while, but after a while it starts to be straining on you, and you need to give Natmir because what that person is really needing is a mother, you know, and they need to kind of let go. So a Natmir acute, you'll start with being cold and you'll get a bad headache. You know, it's like out of the blue headaches where you're just like, oh my God, my head hurts, I need to go in a dark room and lay down, could just totally be Natmir. As well as like headaches from dehydration. You know, Natmir is like really major for like your water balance. And so being dried out, being dehydrated. And then Natmir acutes, you have like a really watery, runny nose where it's just like a faucet. I've definitely seen Natmir help with like just chronic viral infections, herpes, molluscum. So, and then for dosing Natmir, photosensitivity. Yeah. Right. That's a big thing with Natmir, is sensitive to light. Anybody else? I bet a bunch of you guys have taken Natmir. Natmir causing light sensitivity, causing headaches. What else? I think I've kind of covered it. Dosing with Natmir, I mean, you can, you know, I generally dose like almost like a potency higher because it's the remedy of salt one. And I, for something really deep, some sort of like deep ancestral, you know, or some sort of deep disconnect, giving a 10M for emotional cutoffness is really helpful. And Natmir, I feel like, is a remedy that you can repeat in dosing so every so often. And people who need Natmir every so often need it as a remedy, you know. And it's not a bad state to go into, too. That's the thing. In homeopathy, we talk about kind of the negative aspects, the pathological aspects of needing a remedy, whereas there are times where I've needed to go into a Natmir state just to kind of like get away from it all. So this class, even for instance, like I can get really drawn into this class and people's needs and the energies and be really open, but that would start to rattle me. So I need to kind of pull back and cut the cords and like create some distance. And that's a feeling that is almost like Natmiri. You Natmiri people, I feel there's a humility. People who need Natmir, they're generally pretty humble people too. And that's what I like about Natmir people. They're sensitive, they're humble, their own pain inside of like feeling sensitive, they see in other people. And so they can be really compassionate too, like quietly compassionate. This is an intake form that I got recently that just fit Natmir really well. So I asked, what was the personality of the baby like? He was happy, but very much to himself. It was difficult to get his attention. Once on solid foods, he rejected many of them, did not like certain textures. Was the child late on any milestones? Late on all milestones. Speech was severely delayed. Social skills were delayed. When there's a problem with another child, he's not sure how to react, even to simple things. His best friend was absent for a few days, and he didn't know who to sit with in lunch. So this was a kid that, yeah, is just kind of Natmiri, you know, teenager now. So there is, oh yeah, I thought I had put energy of Natmir. Okay, so a lot of other remedies can look like Natmir, be good remedies for depression. Ignatia I've talked about. They're the whole family of plants that Ignatia is in, which includes Nux vomica and these more unusual remedies, are really good for sadness and depression, Staphysagria, aurum. But what I'd really like to do is just do a meditation on Natrum with you guys, on Natmir, on the remedy of Natmir. I found this today. Have you guys seen these salt inhalers? It actually has salt in it, and then you can shake it, and you can breathe in salt ions. And it's supposed to be really good for asthma and allergies. But it's like, it tastes kind of salty, and you can actually absorb the salt into your lungs. And you guys probably know salt lamps. It's called a salt inhaler. You could just get it on Amazon. I think this was like less than $10. This was called Natural Solution. But yeah, it's cool. It's there's a cleansing quality. So just, you know, talking about like the beautiful qualities of salt itself. You know, salt is about letting go. Salt is about dissolving. Salt is about like letting our body be cleansed and cleared and clearing out the old. There's a part of ourselves that sometimes tries to kind of bring things into drama so that we can see them, and then we need to like break away from it. And that's what the energy of Natmir is about. It's about letting go. So we could think about the ocean, and let's just, by connecting to salt, we can also connect to our emotions and into sadness, into grief. So I want you guys, I'm going to do a meditation, and I want to do a meditation. I want you guys to think about either somebody in your family you're disconnected from, like who's like either died or gone away, or they're just totally distant in your family. And we're going to feel into that connection. And we're going to feel into the emotions there and the sadness. And then we're just going to bring in a letting go. Okay. All right. So let's just all close our eyes and do a meditation on Natmir. And I just want you to take a deep breath in and out. And just imagine diving your hands into salt, humble salt. The salt you have in your kitchens, the salt you take a bath in. Salt that cleanses our body, salt that preserves our food. And resonating with the salt in your own body, your blood having the same salinity as the ocean. We are salt. We are beings of salt. And as we connect to the salt in our bodies, we ground to this earth, the saltiness of this earth, being salt of the earth. In connecting to salt, we naturally humble ourselves. We bring ourselves down to earth. And taking a deep breath in and out. I just want you to connect into your heart right now, connecting into your emotions. And imagining a time of great grief, great sadness for you. And in this sadness, feeling alone. Perhaps it was when your child was first diagnosed. Perhaps it was a time where your mother felt cruel and mean to you and yelled at you. And it made you feel this deep well, this deep depth of sadness in your heart. Imagining someone who is separated from your family, maybe your own parents. And just feeling into aloneness. A quiet aloneness. This is the same aloneness that you will feel when you die. The aloneness you will feel when your children leave the home. And connecting into that aloneness. Where nothing really matters. Our ego has no role here. And I want you to imagine just feeling into that grief and sadness and aloneness. And imagining tears from your heart, from your eyes, tears from your family, tears for all the grief, all the sadness, all of the sadness that your families have gone through, and crying all of those tears into an ocean of tears. And those tears, as you release them, that salt, you release the salt, you release the built up stresses, the built up emotions. And you let them go so that your nervous system can reset. You merge with your saltiness, you merge with your tears, you merge with the ocean. And as you merge with this part of you, just allowing yourself to feel sad, to be negative. Imagining that time of the month where you shut down. You're releasing, you go inwards, and you become a truth teller. Really grounding, really letting the facade down, and getting really real. The part of ourselves where we try to dress up and strive to be something, we let that go when we merge with Natmur. When we merge with salt, we become simple. We dissolve. So imagining yourself dissolving. I want you to imagine all the salt in your body and who you are dissolving into the ocean, dissolving into nothingness. And you become the ocean. And you're the ocean reflecting the starlight. And you're the ocean teeming with life. And you can just be. You can just be here, be at peace. Be quiet. Go to sleep. Soften. Let go. Let go of the trying. And imagining the sound of the ocean waves and washing up on shore. And as you wash on shore, little crystals of salt dry on your skin. And all of the excessive electricity, all the excess media, all the excess thoughts, all the excess stress has just been washed away. And you can breathe in the salt air and it clears your lungs, clears your sinuses. And as you connect to salt, you connect to the ocean, you connect to your own body, you connect into yourself, loving yourself, honoring yourself, allowing yourself to just be, being humble and simple, quiet and alone. Allowing yourself to cry when needed. And take a few more deep breaths in and out, bringing the energy of Natmur into your body and into your family, clearing all of your ancestry and clearing your whole family. Giving a dose of Natmur to all of those family members who are separated, to all the people who have deep grief, so we can let it go. We can cry it out. And feeling renewed, you can open your eyes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, guys. So I was really feeling that mirror this week. Like that was my feeling for this week, and like how beautiful that is. Because sometimes I really feel like I need to like turn it on and be out there. But this week I just felt like being quiet and alone, and it served me. It grounded me, and it's good for me, and it's good for you guys too. So let's go further. If anybody wants to share anything that came up for them, feel free. Okay, so nat salt is another natrum remedy, and so it has that natrum sensitivity, that fear of being alone, and the sulfur is this desire for deep connection, great love. So the polarities is sadness and alone, alternating with this kind of anger and rage energy of sulfur. Nat sulf is a huge remedy for head injuries, depression, rectal issues, colon, parasites. And then nat phos is similar. So natrum, you have that desire to, the fear of being alone, and phosphorus is this great desire to connect. So nat phos is like this highly sensitive Natmury remedy. It looks a lot like Natmur, but they're not as shut off energetically. They're actually still trying to like make friends a lot and be social and connect with people, but highly emotionally sensitive. So here's a case of a 6-year-old ASD kid, and you'll hear the Natrum part of it here. He goes, Mom says, by 18 months, he had no attachment to me. It was as though he didn't know I was his mom. He never sought me out for comfort or console. He would play with his toys as if he was in his own world, and I could leave him in a room full of strangers and toys, and he would not notice that I was gone. Okay, he had no eye contact. That's a Natrum picture. Okay, he has difficulty reading people. Okay, so it all kind of seems kind of nature-y. And then he like cares a lot about what people think of him. He wants to do well. He wants to be well liked. He feels really emotional when he's corrected or people feel like he's not good enough. He cries a lot, has meltdowns all the time. He's just crying and crying and crying. He also had a lot of worms. And so Nat Phos is known for being a good worm remedy. So I gave Nat Phos and that helped him. Okay. So Natrum, we're done. We've got 15, 20 more minutes to finish the rest of these. Magnesium, magnesium is the next remedy after Natrum. You guys all know what magnesium is as a mineral, right? We need salt. We need magnesium, we need calcium. These minerals like wash through us. It's like naturally we should be getting it from like our water and our food sources, but we really sometimes need a supplement, right? Because these minerals wash through us. I take a lot of magnesium often when I'm about to get my period or if I'm feeling tense. So the feeling of magnesium is not so much about being alone. It's more like they've taken that step into relationship, but they're just passive in relationship. And they can't really assert themselves. So they're there, they're standing there, they're a part, they're in relationship, and engaging. So Natmurs have relationships, but their relationships have like a wall up oftentimes. And Natmur and magnesium, they can often like be in relationships with people who are abusive and they won't really leave because they're afraid, because they don't stand up for themselves really easily. Yeah, someone asked me what dose of magnesium do I take for my period. We'll get to it. Mag Phos is a really good remedy for cramps, by the way. But if I'm just taking magnesium as a mineral, I just dump some in a cup of water and drink it. Very unscientific. So magnesium is this feeling of like the orphan child, the middle child syndrome, Oliver Twist. Like it'll be like a kid who's a twin who's like not the twin that gets all the energy, or they're in a large family, or there's a strong energy too. I've seen this with adults where there's like they're the parent who can't assert themselves. I've even seen this in once I gave a mag remedy to a dad who was afraid to go home after work because his kids were fighting all the time. And he'd be like afraid to just like open the door to his house. Like work was easier, being at home was hard. And he needed a magnesium remedy to assert himself in the home and be like an assertive father. So there can be a lot of, with all of these remedies with natrum and magnesium, there can be this kind of victim and resentment energy. But it'll come out a little bit more with magnesium. They'll whine a little bit more. Definitely a wide variety of physical symptoms with mag remedies because magnesium is used in all functions of the body. But in general, a lot of like GI, gut, parasites, cramping is really big for magnesium. So you can even have a headache that feels like it's cramping. So mag carb is called the peacemaker. It's not that the kid is like really trying to like make everyone peaceful. They just want peace, you know. It's famous for kids who've has been around a lot of fighting, or like fighting, they're just done with fighting. You know, it's an adult, you've been fighting with your spouse for 10 years and you like can't do it anymore, and you just become like a mag. You're just like, it's like the fighting, you know, the chance for an argument just churns your stomach instead. The magnesium is similar to calcarea. It's this kind of insecurity, not wanting to be looked at. And there's this kind of keynote with mag carb, sour odors, but calcarea has that too. So this is just I'm just going to read you some quotes because I think you'll get more from it from this. So this was a mom who needed mag carb. I grew up with constant fighting and nastiness, a lot of conflict. I would go numb and withdraw. I would always be the one who would give in to get the conflict over with. I would give up hope and that I would be heard. I would run ragged in an argument, so I would just give up and get hopeless. I'm afraid to stand up for myself, and I push my husband and show that I expect certain things from him, and my stomach feels heavy all the time. My anxiety sits in my stomach. My stomach is in knots. So it's that idea of like needing to stand up for myself, but not, and holding all of that anxiety of conflict in your tummy or in your muscles or somewhere in your body. This is a really good case. This was an 11-year-old pandas kid where like mag carb was his remedy that helped him heal. And he got jumped by a dog. But at the same time that he got jumped by a dog, his parents were going through a divorce. So it was like this combination of energies of like him being kind of attacked. And when he got jumped by a dog, he didn't cry. His parents were fighting all the time. He just became really withdrawn. Yeah. So you guys can read here. His father was really verbally mean. So the sensation he felt was, why do I have to go through all this? This is despairing. My stomach hurts. I want to fit in. I have anxiety in my tummy. I have this nervous feeling. What's going to come next? Are you going to like fight? You know, there are going to be sounds that are scary. So I gave him mag carb and carcinosin. Carcinosin is similar. Carcinosin has a big feeling of chaos in the family and overwhelmed by it. Okay. So after the remedy, he got emotionally reactive, started talking about his feelings. He released the trauma of the dog attacking him, started expressing his hurt feelings more. And that's the great thing about like NatMir or MagMir is like the feelings just get expressed. You know, healing and feeling go hand in hand. So we've got to express our feelings. Okay, so I've done, seen lots of other like mag remedies. Mag remedies for sure come up a lot in ASD cases and pandas cases. They're really common. They're really good constitutional remedies. We'll skip this one. This was a kid who needed MagMir. So this is an example of combining remedies. So the magnesium was his fear of asserting himself. And the muriaticum was his fear of his mother yelling. And we gave that one, and that helped. I've given some magnesium remedies to adults and had super miraculous success. I had this one woman in a wheelchair who was tremoring, but she was tremoring because she was so stressed because her family was fighting. And so MagSil stopped her tremors. And the tremors were like a type of like almost like spasming, like cramping practically in her body. And then MagSulf I gave to my own mother. She had high blood pressure and migraines, and MagSulf helped her. She never was able to stand up for herself in arguments. And magnesium remedies are going to look like a lot of kind of GI remedies where people need attention, chamomilla, lycopodium, pulsatilla. Okay. Right. So aluminum. Aluminum I don't give a lot constitutionally. Aluminum is, you know, we worry about aluminum pots and all of our aluminum exposure and aluminum in vaccines. There is this idea that it causes delayed nerve transmission and this fog, like Alzheimer's is a good picture for aluminum. What I do for special needs kids a lot, like I've not given Alumina 200C very often as a constitutional, but I've seen it a lot, help a lot, where I give it in a low potency regularly for kids who are slowed down. You know, it's like they're just slow and in a fog. It's hard to explain, but they're not completely, you know, they're just not completely here. And that idea of in a fog, it's like you're here, but you're somewhere else. It's like you're on another plane. And I think that there's more work that could be done in understanding aluminum as a remedy for ASD. You guys could read this case if you want to. Okay, lastly is silica. So silica, huge. Silica, so this is silica, this is selenite. A glass is silica, right? Sand is silica. We have silica in our bodies, our hair. The theme of silica, and there's a lot of silica-y people out there where their kind of core constitution is silica. So I really want you guys to get this remedy. Like Natrum and silica are my two polycrests I really want you to get. So silica people, it's like that they are a glass container. They're holding the space. They're holding the space for the people around them. And that's what makes them really awesome. They're these kind of mild-mannered people who are there kind of in service to create space in their environment. And they care a lot about the environment. They care about harmony, things looking nice. They care about appearances and their appearance. They care about the appearance of their family, like how their family is perceived. They want their family to be perceived as this like nice, perfect, harmonious family, right? So they care a lot about, you know, making the pillows look nice, and they're the types of people that would want to, like, you know, do the nice holiday and make the holiday look really nice. These people are kind of the backbones of the family. They're the center of the family. They care about, like, you know, making everybody harmonious as possible in your family. Silica people who need silica, they will hold themselves back for the sake of other people. So it's said that you need like more of a backbone. When you need silica or you take silica, it gives you that backbone. And it also helps you with absorption. So silica, if you think of it like a glass, it's like sometimes they just allow food to kind of go right through them, or get, it's like they're not fully absorbing. They're a little inert. They're not taking stuff in. Also, though, like a glass, they can be rigid, you know, and so they may have their way in doing things. So we have a neighbor who, she's silica. She cares so much about what people think. She cares a lot about her space. Super sweet, super nice, very refined. Silica people tend to be kind of more refined, smaller in their bodies, petite generally, and they care about manners. And but she's vegetarian and she's really strict. And she really, it's like, I cannot have, like, I put some fish sauce in a pad thai that I made, and she came over and got very upset because she didn't know. And, you know, so they can be really principled, really rigid. Like, silica is about this lattice of like energy that, you know, it's like this is what fits and this doesn't fit. You know, this is what's correct and this is not correct. It's very much about being like principled. So being that, you know, silica, like carbon, it's the center of the periodic table. And it's about stability. It's about appearance. So even though it's about appearance, they're these mild-mannered people, so they're not necessarily like out there. It's interesting. They're like these very humble but stable people. They're really awesome people. Silica people are great. They're great to be friends with. They're great to like run a household, but they've got health issues. They need to take silica to help them stand up for themselves, to help them. Silica is such a key remedy for a lot of like various acute things. It's really good to take silica to help push something out, for you to get aligned with like your core structure and have your structure push something out of the body. So Eva, she was eating fish and she got a fish bone stuck in her throat, and I was freaking out, and I gave her silica 1M or 10M, and like in 10 seconds she hacked it up, after like 2 minutes of like disaster. So like, I have my neighbor, he's a carpenter. He got a shard of wood direct into his finger, like, you couldn't get it out, like an inch deep. He took a high dose of silica, and he woke up the next morning, was showering, and he saw it shot out of his finger. And he's like, it's like one of those remedies where you're like, okay, great for ear infections. Silica people often have sinus infections because they can't push stuff out. So silica is a really good remedy for that. So I give this remedy a lot. I give this remedy a lot to special needs kids who need to get stronger in themselves. They're just a little bit, they've taken on too much of other people's stuff, and they don't have a strong sense of themselves. So silica helps give that. It gives you your center. It gives you your structure. It gives you your backbone. It gives you your sense of self. It's in that stage 10, so it's that alignment with like kind of like principles, father, divine father energy. And it's like carbon, what I talked about last week, that kind of stubbornness too. This case that I put in the notes, it represents silica really well. It was a boy. It was raised by a single mom. Mom came to see me because he was always getting sick and had acne. He didn't express his emotions well, was cautious. You could read it and think, oh, this kid seems like a nat mirror. This kid seems like a calc carb. He's like quiet, doesn't like let his feelings out, looks like those remedies, but he's really ambitious. He wants to succeed. He is social. He'll do things. He'll dress up. He'll put on nice clothes. He makes an effort. He's not terribly shy. He will go out of his comfort zone, So silica is like, they'll be in the group, whereas a nat mirror will be like really kind of nervous or choose to stay at home. But a silica can really kind of still like hold their own, through this kind of being kind of rigid and firm within themselves. So he also had scoliosis, so he had issues with his spine, tiredness, fatigue, sinus congestion, headaches. I always see silica people with sinus stuff, like, is such a good silica thing. Even his acne, it would like kind of just swell up but not pop out as well. He would retire into himself when I fought with his dad. So that could look like mag carb, right? Fighting with dad, or carcinosin. But he didn't whine. He wasn't a whiny kid. He tried to do really well. They really like to please, He got white spots on his nails. Anyways, this is all very silica stuff. And he did great with it. I gave him silica up to 10M for a good period of time. This was his constitutional. All this stuff bubbled to the surface after I gave it to him. He talked about his dad. He talked a lot after I gave him the remedy about wanting to have a role model father. He wanted a male role model he could look up to. And I think that was the energy of like the remedy kind of bringing that out in him. So silica is about the creation of an outer framework or skeleton, the function of a crystal or a glass. It is an organizing form. Clearness, self-denial, constancy, structure, and orderliness are characteristics of silica, but linking too tightly together will lead to petrification and inflexibility. Okay? So let's just close tonight. I'm finishing on time tonight. I'd like to just close tonight after we did that nap mirror meditation where we like really cleared stuff out. I want us to do a closing meditation on quartz, clear quartz as a form of silica, okay? So clear quartz is a remedy that I've used similar to silica. And if you can see this, it has these like lines in it and it looks like a beam of light, right? This is selenite. And the energy of this, you know, like this, if we can connect to that, we can get really aligned in our center. And it can be really, like Nat Mirror grounded us, and this would center us in our kind of true self, in our core. And that combination of energies I want to leave you with for this week. So having been grounded with Nat Mirror and centered in your core with silica, because it's such a awesome combination. I often, for some reason, have these two chunks next to each other at my desk or like in a place in my home that's important to me, because I really feel like that to me represents the stability of home, are these two elements. So the salt is kind of like the mother energy of the ocean, and then the silica is a stage 12, kind of principled, aligned, divine light, kind of father, kind of masculine energy. So let's just do that. And if you guys have any questions, you can put them up. And then Friday, we have our case taking class. Okay? Sound good? All right. All right. This is for you, Sue. Just kidding. All right. Sue's the one that likes the guided meditation. So. All right. So let's just close our eyes as we're ending this class and like lift your shoulders up and then drop them down and just kind of move your body, shake out any, like roll your neck, roll your shoulders a bit and shake out any stress in your body and just coming into your body. And now feeling the weight, I want you guys are all sitting, so just feel the weight of your butt bones sitting in your chair. And take a deep breath in and out and really connect to your pelvic bones and just feel your spine, feel your alignment. And maybe even if you are closing your eyes, you might see your alignment kind of swaying one direction or the other. So really connecting to your skeleton, your core. And as you connect to your core and your spine, I want you to imagine that quartz crystal that I showed you and aligning your energy with this crystal, this beautiful white quartz crystal. And imagine it gleaming, gleaming white, gleaming with an iridescent light, a luminescent light. And bring the energy of that to your center, to your core. Imagine that energy is in your center. And the brightness of that quartz, that white quartz, it aligns your spine. And it aligns you actually all the way from the top of your crown all the way down to your feet. And you connect through your feet into the earth. So you connect your body into the core of the earth, and you're aligned upwards all the way up to your crown, like you're standing so tall, kind of like you're hanging from a string where you're just totally aligned, totally straight, connecting to the sky and connecting to the earth. And as you connect into this quartz at your center, you connect into your energy grid, the part of you that's connected to the grid of all life, this lattice, this system, this matrix. And taking a deep breath in, connecting to your core, affirm, all that is not serving me, all that is not serving my body, my higher self, I push it out from my center. I am strong in my center, strong in my core, and anything that is not serving my highest interest, I push outwards from my core out. And imagining this beam of light, this quartz energy, it shines so bright. And you connect to this core of who you are. And your internal alignment becomes so perfect that energy flows up and down your body without any resistance. And you just affirm to yourself that the center of my reality, the center of my truth, is in my core, is inside of me. And from this center, my intuition flows. And in this week, I will be guided from my center. I will be grounded and cleared. And just taking a few more deep breaths, letting all the energy that needs to move into the earth right now through this alignment. Just move as you breathe. And taking a few more deep breaths. And just saying a little prayer of gratitude from your heart for all that is good in your life, bringing in some positive vibes. You can open your eyes. All right, great. All right, you guys. So there we go. So next class is going to be Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern time. It's going to be case taking. I got this selenite in Sedona at the Chocolatry Cafe, where they sell it in the back, but every place in Sedona sells these. This was probably it wasn't too expensive. Selenite is pretty well known, and they use it in healing a lot. Oh, sorry, I missed some questions here. Okay, so Brooke asked, when you give Illumina for dullness, slowness, how often do you give Illumina? Oh, yeah. Okay, so often if I'm dosing Illumina or Mercurius or Plumbum for special needs, I'll give it in 12C as often as once a day, but more like 2 or 3 times a week over a longer period of time. And I have seen actual metal levels drop. Brooke says, when you're using silica to push things out, is it only bigger physical objects, or does it work on cellular debris and infection too? I'd like to assume, I mean, I use the examples of the splinter and the fishbone because it's so obvious. But I'm assuming if it can do that, we can do that physically in our bodies. I mean, I've definitely used it as a constitutional for kids, you know, with lots of infections and seeing them get better. Okay. I got a bar of selenite for my son and he threw it out the window. I hope nobody was like 2 stories down. You could have killed someone. That would have been really, really weird and bad. So anyways, yeah. You know, there are homeopathic remedies of gemstones like aquamarine and amethyst, and I'm not going to teach on those, but they're similar to quartz in that I really feel like it works on structural stuff, like the structural energies of our body. I treated this one kid with pandas who, it was crazy. He was one kid of 13 children. And his mom had him back to back with other kids. She had a lot of kids, and she was minerally depleted. So I feel like he just didn't get the minerals he needed. He was really floppy and had all his musculoskeletal stuff. And when he got the pandas, his neck fell backwards, and he literally could not lift his neck up. He would like walk around like this, like he could. It was like his neck was broken. It was just like walking like this, like all around, and like. I gave clear quartz and he could lift his neck up again. You know, so it was just like gave him that strength. So anything else? All right, thank you so much. I'm glad you liked the class. I hope that this class was really grounding and real and settling for you guys. Salt and quartz. And you have a good week. And then the next class we'll be talking about phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine. All right, love you guys a lot. Stay in touch, and we'll talk again soon. And let me know if you have any questions. Bye.